Hello, welcome, my name is SlugMTG, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 3 most popular commanders and trying to figure out why they're so popular. The site that we'll be referencing, of course, is EDHREC. What can I say? It's a good site. Now, EDHREC's popularity list only goes back to 2 years, so that will definitely be different from a comprehensive list of all commander decks that have ever been built. But that number is larger than the number of fingers and toes that I have, so I can account. Plus, Commander's popularity as a format has really started to take off these past couple years, so maybe it's not that far off, but anyway, let's get started. EDHREC Praetor's Voice. Green, whites, blue, black for a legendary creature, Angel Horror. 4/4 for flying, vigilance, death touch, lifelink, and at the beginning of your end step, proliferates. If you've been playing Commander for more than 5 minutes, you've probably run into EDHREC at some point. She's the #1 most built commander on EDHREC with 4,043 decks for one good reason. Those long, sexy legs. Seriously, she's like 70% legs. Okay, look. I've studied EDHREC for 6, maybe 7 minutes now, and I feel like I'm qualified to explain why she's that popular. Besides the legs, of course. The most obvious reason is the fact that she's one of the best commanders for so many different playstyles. In fact, EDHREC. +1/+1 counters, EDHREC. Super Friends, EDHREC. Energy counters, sexy lady legs. Even Fungus Tribal bows to her superior thighs. Why is EDHREC Fungus Tribal even a thing? I'll tell you why. Proliferate. EDHREC strikes a really good balance between being driven towards a specific strategy, but still being open-ended to support countless options. Every one of these themes benefits greatly from Proliferate, and although there are a lot of other options for each one of these themes, well, maybe not energy counters, EDHREC doesn't have any other condition other than getting to the end of your turn to have that payoff. It doesn't matter if EDHREC gets removed going around the table because you already got the value you were looking for. The fact that she only costs what she has to in order to get all of those colors means that unless you're horribly mana screwed, she's going to hit the field and she's going to get that engine going. She is low to the ground and easy to get rolling with. Another reason is the color identity itself. Having more colors available to you means giving these themes more options that they otherwise wouldn't have going with anyone else. The only color missing is red, so an incredible number of additional cards can be chosen from, giving each deck a lot of flexibility to adapt to whatever build you want to go with in whatever meta you play in. EDHREC is just a good value engine in great colors, giving each player the option to be as competitive or as casual as they like. Having a commander that is the absolute definition of flexible, letting the player decide where to go, and having EDHREC as the reliable support has rocketed her to the most popular commander of all time. Over 1,000 decks. That's how much she's in the lead in front of the second place commander. Speaking of which, Edgar Markov. 3 red, white, black for a legendary creature, Vampire Knight, 4/4. Eminence. Whenever you cast another vampire spell, if Edgar Markov is in the command zone or on the battlefield, create a 1/1 black vampire creature token. First strike, haste. Whenever Edgar Markov attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on each vampire you control. I know I just said the reason EDHREC is popular was because she was a low to the ground value engine that supported a wide range of different strategies and themes. So why is Edgar Markov #2 with 2,883 decks? Isn't he like, you know, one of the most linear commanders ever built? You're right. Mr. Pasty only supports one strategy, but ask players what they consider to be the most popular tribes and see how long it takes them to say vampires. That being said, I don't think vampires are the most popular tribe or the most established. Elves, goblins, and zombies probably all come to mind before vampires when it comes to tribal decks, so what gives? It may seem confusing, so let's try to break it down. First, let's take a look at Vampire Tribal itself and why it's taken off. Daddy Markov is basically the perfect commander any vampire lord could have hoped for. Thanks to Eminence, he doesn't even need to grace us with his presence in order to help. His high CMC is offset when he helps flood the board with little vampire wannabes, making each one of your spells a bit more efficient, and speeding up the clock for all of your opponents. Even if someone wipes the field, you're getting a 2-for-1 deal with every creature you're playing, so you need less resources to rebuild and turn the pressure back on. He gets value for your deck without any mana investment whatsoever, and I know some Edgar players who never even cast him. However, when you're struggling to close, you can cast him and immediately start spanking your opponents. He buffs up your team starting the turn you cast him, gets you more vampires to buff, and is even in the perfect colors to include just about every vampire ever printed. He's crazy efficient, very powerful, and pretty much the only option for Vampire Tribal. If you aren't running Pasty Daddy, you're not running the best commander, hands down. Since receiving practically the perfect commander, it makes sense that a lot of people will gravitate towards that tribe given the massive buff it has received. However, the more established tribes mentioned before have just as powerful engines running, so shouldn't they be up here as well? The main reason there isn't a zombie or elf tribal up here, I believe, is because there are plenty of options for your commander. For zombies, you have Varina, the Scarab God, Sidisi, Gisa and Geralf, and plenty more. Elves have Azuri, Marwyn, Reese, Azuri again, all competing to lead these archetypes. Goblins are a little weird. The original Kranko is pretty much the only commander, but I believe that's mainly due to EDHREC dropping old data after a few years, and EDH as a format really taking off around the time Edgar was released, versus Kranko, who was released in 2012. If EDHREC held on to its data forever, then it might be a little different, but they don't. Edgar doesn't have to share the spotlight, and the fact that WotC released a great commander for a tribe that didn't really have a standout leader at a good power level meant people flocked to make their decks. Muldrotha the Gravetide. 3 black, green, blue for a legendary creature, elemental avatar, 6/6. During each of your turns, you may play up to 1 permanent card of each permanent type from your graveyard. So there is one thing in common that the first and second place commanders have that I left out. They're face commanders for the annual commander deck products. So, helping to inflate some of those numbers are all of the people making slight upgrades to their pre-constructed decks and posting them online for feedback. So if there's a legendary creature to break that trend, then it better be good. Muldrotha has 2,745 decks, only 138 decks behind Markov, making her the most popular commander not coming out of a commander product. And just so you know, the next commander that isn't from a precon is Queen Marchesa at number 10. So Muldrotha better be good, and she's better than good, she thick. The reasons why Muldrotha is popular are pretty similar to Atraxa. The Goopy Girl's ability to play out of the graveyard is nearly unrivaled, making her one of the premier graveyard commanders. Marin may be the first commander that springs to mind when you think of graveyard shenanigans, but Marin is at number 4 by 9 decks and must sit out of the video like the complete and utter failure she is. On a slightly more serious note, Marin is another great value engine focusing on the graveyard, but her entire strategy revolves around creatures. Muldrotha can be based around any permanents, opening her up to a plethora of new themes and synergies that Marin can only dream about. I mean, there's Aristocrats, Dredge, Land Matters, Bounce, Mill, and Elf Tribal? I don't know about that last one, but there's a link to it on EDHREC, so it must be true. The additional color with blue is a very welcome addition, opening up more options and more cards to play with, and since you're playing out of your graveyard, it's going to be that much harder to shut your deck down. Typical answers aren't enough, and if your opponents aren't running a lot of graveyard hate, then you're going to be nearly unstoppable. Even if your opponents are planning on ruining your swamp, you're in the 3 best colors to answer all threats, so I'm sure you'll think of something to do about it. One thing that may seem off is Muldrotha's high CMC, being the same as Markov's, but there's no evidence to help that. I don't think that's too much of an issue for Gloopy Glob, since she relies on having a full graveyard to play with, and that's going to take some time to set up. Not to mention you're running the 2 best ramping colors, green and black. At least, I'd be pretty surprised if Muldrotha didn't hit the field until turn 6. So your strategy early game is going to be filling your graveyard, since even if she had a CMC of 3, you wouldn't be casting her until that was set up. Then, once the game is underway, you can smack your thick girl down and watch her start getting that value. Since she's not pointed in a super specific direction, just a broad area like Atraxa, she can be built for pretty much any playgroup at any power level and still feel good to pilot. Overall, another great value engine that wants to spend the early game setting up so the high CMC isn't that big of a deterrent. And there you have it. The top 3 commanders as of this video, broken down into why I think they're that popular. This was a pretty fun video to make. I do enjoy breaking things down and analyzing, so I'll probably do more stuff like this in the future. Let me know if you think there's anything I missed or if you thought another commander should be up here by posting a comment down below. As always, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch my video. I do greatly appreciate it, but now, if you'll excuse me, I'm about to proliferate these +1/+1 counters on all my vampires I just resurrected from my graveyard. Bye!